Well, welcome back, everyone. Ryan Ripken Show, episode 5. We're back in studio. For those that don't know me, I'm Ryan Ripken. If you're just tuning in, and my co-host Brad Smith. Brad,
what's up, people?
How are we doing? Are you just higher than me right now?
I might be.
That's all right. It's okay. We're trying to even out. What are you on a good day?
6'1".
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
With the hair, probably 6'2".
Yeah, for me, hair's not in my favor anymore. But when I stand up straight, I'm more like 6'5", 6'6", especially when I'm around family members. But hey, look, we're back in person, and it's actually nice. Orioles had a day game today, so there isn't as much going on. We're going to cover a lot of that, so we'll give you a little bit of rundown of what's on the docket today. We do have a special guest coming on.
We do.
Second week in a row, and we're going to have this become more of a norm for people because we just think it's a great way to interact.
Yeah.
So around 7:30, Steve Johnson's going to come on, and we're going to talk a lot of things with baseball, Baltimore related, and do thank you.
You're welcome.
See, this is what I need you for a lot of reasons. We're going to talk about obviously things with the Orioles. We're going to go around into the Baltimore sports. We'll touch on things with the Ravens, other football news, break down a little bit even for fantasy. We're going to kick off the show with our Hear Me Outs. We'd love to hear more of your Hear Me Outs.
Yes.
Brad has one that I'm sure you guys have seen circling throughout social media the last couple days. We're sticking with our love to see it, hate to see it, grind our gears to close out, and then we'll preview next week's show. Is that kind of it? Are we good?
Yeah, I think so. See that? Yeah, I got to put myself back up because I had this camera
wherever you need to be. Whatever's going to
also very bright, but that's okay.
Whatever's going to fluff you up.
We can live with that. But yes, we will have the Hear Me Outs as well. Listen, I just want to point out too, by the way, the palm tree behind you looks pretty legit. I'm digging the palm tree.
I'll say the decor in here might have been updated. and the reason why the space was being used last week, and honestly, there's some great photos of it, and I think it actually looks even better now. Gives us some future ideas that will eventually help the show. But looks great. We're excited. And enough kind of babbling on. Without further ado, Brad, the floor is yours.
Okay. So I got torched on Twitter.
Roasted.
First game of the series, Orioles go up 5-0. It ended up being 6-3, and then out comes Jose Bautista. Loads the bases, throws a grand slam, and I decided to bring up something that I had brought up about 3 weeks ago regarding Jose Bautista and big games. And I was like, hey, should this be something that we're worried about? So then I decided to bring it back up the other night when Jose Bautista yet again blew another save against a big game, big team. And every O's fan out there lost their goddamn minds. I'll reference back the video that was talking about this because I want to give context. So here's the context of that video about 3 weeks ago when I brought up about Jose Bautista. And we're going to go in what happened today and some of the flack that I've gotten because I feel like I deserve this moment. So here, listen to this. Stat of the week is Felix's blown saves. And Felix basically blew a save. He did, not basically. He blew a save in the All-Star game. Obviously throwing that homer to Elias Diaz. But that's not the only big game he's blown. So if you look at Felix, he's had 23 saves this year, and he has blown the Seattle Mariners game that we played against them on June 24th. Then before that, he blew the game against the Yankees, which was another big series, obviously. Then blew another game against the Braves. These are all playoff contenders. Probably going to see them in the postseason. And so my question is this a problem for Felix? Is he going to struggle in the big games, and what's it going to look like in the postseason? Now, obviously, this is a small sample size, but you can't ignore the fact that these blown saves are against some pretty big teams and some pretty big games under the spotlight.
I appreciate your stat, Brad. All right. So without
going in without letting it continue to go. Ryan basically said he's not worried about Jose Bautista. We weren't worried about Jose Bautista. And then the Astros game happens, the first one in the series. And I ended up putting out this tweet here that says, and attach the video. It says, this aired 3 weeks ago where I brought up the concerns about Felix Bautista in big games, not denying that Felix is still the best in baseball. Let me say that again. Not denying that Felix is still the best in baseball, but is it a coincidence that we saw another blown save when the lights are shining brightest? You be the judge. Then we had Eric, Barstool RDD, say that what the hell are we doing? Kyle Tucker turned on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. This is that night. And then Locked on Orioles, good old Connor, decided to take another jab at me. He said that today I learned that Ryan Ripken's co-host does not know ball at all. And then, ladies and gentlemen, guess what happened today? The Orioles got the dub, but it was real close, Ryan. And Jose Bautista gave up 2 walks, or walked 2 guys, gave up another run, and in total, throughout this entire series, gave up 5 home runs, 5 hits, and 3 walks. And to me, that is cause for concern. I would argue that I actually do know ball now. And that there is legitimate questions that should be surrounding around this issue. Is Jose Bautista still the best in the league? Yes.
Felix. We just watched the clip on Jose later.
Felix. Sorry.
You're not.
I know. Sorry. I'm a little heated.
I can tell.
Is Felix Bautista still the best in the league? Yes. Is there any closer that I would want on the Orioles other than Felix Bautista? No. But there is growing concerns about him in big games, especially against teams like the Astros, the Braves, what have you, because of the caliber teams that we're gonna see these guys. And not the Braves, obviously. We could see the Braves in the World Series if we get that far. But I think there's growing cause for concern, and these are legitimate questions that I was asking. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
So I laugh here just because I did tell Brad before when he was saying he's gonna put something out there. I said, woof, after a game, Godspeed, if you put out a tweet. And again, I think the wording of how the tweet itself, I think what was getting people going, because the thing initially was just asking essentially when you face the teams, but obviously I've mentioned this, I've been on the record. You can look at all my tweets. You can look at everything I've said. Yeah. I never have any concern with Felix Bautista. The guy throws 100+, splitter's devastating. He deserves to be a Cy Young. Consider it. I still think he's going to be in the race for it. But now just talking about things, it might not be like saying about Felix worrying about him in general. I think it's also proving the point that driving home the point that the Houston Astros are still the team to beat in the American League. And I think that people shied away from that. And I think in this moment, even though the primary objective is to stay ahead of the Rays and win the American League East. I think we can all agree with that. But the Houston Astros are an extremely hard team to put away. And I think that's something that if Felix came out 1-2-3, we probably, you're hearing me out, it probably isn't as passionate. Again, it's not about the concern. But if we go back, there was a game last year, and I hate even that I have to remember this. The Orioles played the Astros at home, and it was September 24th, 2022. And I was at the game. That's why I remember the game. And the guy that hit the grand slam against the Orioles also caused a blown save for Felix last year. And that was Kyle Tucker. Now, coincidentally, it's funny. Kyle Tucker, if it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani, would probably be considered an MVP candidate, possible front runner. That's how good he's been. And this Astros team's spectacular. Yeah. I think it's just going to show that this Astros team is still giving the Orioles fits. I think that is just what we're getting to. But context-wise, I just laughed because I just knew that you were going to just get roasted the hell out of you.
Well, and that's
what's the words?
Like, I did it with intention of garnering some conversation, which it definitely did do that. But it now has been validated by. Well,
now you have people. Yeah, you put a thought in someone's head.
Yeah,
and to the credit of it, and this is what I said. Felix's numbers, unfortunately, against the Astros are not the best.
Right,
and that is what it is. But the Orioles, and this is my hear me out for the week then, this was the best thing that could happen for the Orioles.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this is the best thing that could have happened is that the Astros came in, took your heart out in game 1, put it to you late in game 2, which we'll get into a little bit more of our baseball questions around some of the players or team. And then on top of it, they come back and what they've done all year is they won the series, but they still don't leave the series feeling great. You feel like the Astros, if you take away from the series, everyone thinks that the Astros are still the Astros.
Yeah.
They've still been the best team in baseball in the American League for the last decade. But I think that that's good because you realize, and I tweeted this out last night, the Orioles can beat anybody.
Yep.
They have the talent to beat anybody. They have the confidence to beat anybody, but you're still chasing that one team. And that one team is the Houston Astros. And until they are not in the playoffs, I don't care if they don't win their division. That is the one team. If you were to poll it right now, no one wants to face the Astros just based off of their pedigree and their ability to give teams problems. You want to go back to the playoffs last year? They got to the ALCS, but not without a really good effort from the Mariners where they had to claw their way back in game 1, steal that, and then they won an 18-inning game in Seattle to close it out, and then they took care of business versus the Yankees. My point is they find different ways to win. The Orioles, they are going, and that's the last step. The Orioles get by the Astros. That will be, to me, they're fully the best team. And I'm glad it happens now, not in September or going to the postseason. Best thing for the team, and this will help them in the long term.
At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to get past the Astros with 5 hits, 5 home runs, or five hits, 5 earned runs, and 3 walks as with the closer.
And to be,
it's not going to happen. And Verlander wasn't even a factor in the series. So that's also something to consider when it comes to playoff time.
Yeah, and I'll also throw out this little part here. The bullpen had an unbelievable series against the Mets. Fantastic. No earned runs. Fantastic. And I know people are going to say it's the Mets. Imagine that. 3-game set. The Orioles never trailed in a game. And then your bullpen doesn't give up a run. That's a big reason why you never trailed.
Yeah.
The Astros were able to do damage late in games. And I think that's just the part of it where I'm not going to get into concerns about that. It's just, that's what makes them dangerous. Framber Valdez, who you got to, even though he gave up 6 runs, he went 7 innings. And
I was actually surprised by that. So
I wasn't, well, you asked your question.
So my question was like, if you gave up 5 runs, and it was 5 runs in the first inning or first 2 innings? I can't remember.
The first 2.
So 5 runs in 2 innings, and you're not even thinking about pulling the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and I would think in many cases, most managers would be like, all right, let's just get an arm in there. This guy's like just not in his head, whatever, or just in his head. And so like, just because, I've never been a manager. Obviously you played professional baseball. Like what's going through a manager's head when you see, 5 spot and it's really early in the game. And then you actually leave the guy in there to throw 7.
Well, so I think every pitcher is different and every manager is different. And so actually and I know we got Steve waiting in the wings, so we'll get him here in a second. But essentially what makes Framber Valdez so special is the ability that he can go out there and be efficient and get you innings and give you a Cy Young caliber season, which he's had up until this point. But then the other part of it is he will eat innings so your bullpen isn't deteriorated. So the fact of the matter is that Framber gave up 5. I think he threw 93 pitches in the game and went 7 innings. And when you look back at that, you could say, man, we got the Valdez, but we didn't get to the bullpen. Yeah. And that's something when you think about getting a starter out of the game, at least your goal is, okay, well, we're going to have to waste the arms. The Astros didn't have to waste any arms. And that's what Framber brings to the Astros, an underlying, or underrated quality that he has. So that's all we got with that. But actually, we are trying to see where we are right now. Oh, hey. I think it's time.
Let's do it.
Steve?
Hey, what's up?
I got to put the headphones on for this.
Oh.
Hey.
What's going on, Steve? So I was going to let you introduce him, so you might as well just go ahead.
Well, can I get these damn headphones on? Can you hear me?
Ryan hates headphones.
I do hate these things. How do these work? There we go. Stop traffic. Steve.
What's going on?
How are we doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Just been chilling, waiting to get in here.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I went on a little bit of a rant. You look fantastic. New Roost Tart flavor, by the way. The OJ, the orange. It's for OJ Brigance Brigade, but orange flavor. I'm curious what you'll think because you love the lemon so much.
Well, lemon was good. I think you had a little more of the lemon than we may have expected you to have.
You know what? I don't think. Okay. So
we need context. So,
Wait.
by the way, Steve Johnson is a former professional baseball pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. For those of you who are watching, I have no idea who Steve Johnson is. And so the context with the Roost Tarts as well is that Steve Johnson and Ryan had a recorded podcast, a failed recorded podcast where they ate 8 Roost Tarts, Steve?
8.
We did. 8 of them.
Oh, sugar.
So there, Steve. Everybody, welcome Steve to the show. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, there's your second welcoming. Okay,
there we go.
Listen, it's a work in progress, my man.
Yeah. We're trying. We're working on it. But the other reason for Steve why I brought up the Roost Tart comparison, Steve's a Maryland native.
Yeah,
from the Baltimore region, played for the hometown team. Awesome, yada yada yada. Steve, good for you.
Dad was also a pitcher.
Dad also was a pitcher, and actually, I think still one of the coolest things was that your dad and you both have a win on August 8th. Is that correct?
Our first major league win on August 8th for the Orioles.
Nuts. That is cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a fun fact. That's going to be a trivia question. I think there's a couple trivia questions. There's that one. And the other one that we have now is who replaced my dad to end the streak. That's one that actually was added too. So those are 2 Orioles trivia questions. If you truly want to know, I'm not going to say that answer. Maybe anyone in the comments or listen to this video later, you let me know. But Steve, this is perfect. Perfect timing of you walking in. You've watched a lot of the baseball this season.
Yep.
We've chatted a little bit. So far, we gave our opinions on this past series. Where do you stand? I just said, if you heard my rant, this might be the best thing for the team. The Astros, I think, are still the team to beat. Any cause for concern on your side, or do you think there's anything else that isn't talked about that should be talked about?
I just think overall, they did a lot of things right. I mean, you get to the ninth inning with 2 leads. You have one game that's pretty close. And the wheels kind of fell off in the second game, but they had a 3-run lead in the ninth with your best closer, one of the best closers in the game, saving it. And he's not going to do it every time, but watching that game, he actually threw a lot of really good pitches, and he didn't get the results I think that he normally does. I mean, his splitter's kind of been one of those things that's been kind of a little bit off at times, but he actually threw some pretty good ones, and they kept fouling things off. And as a pitcher, when they start raising that pitch count and they see more pitches, you got to give him one at some point, and he has 100 to throw. So he's got a pretty good one to give to him, and they only need to have one good swing at one point, and it ends the game. So I think overall he really pitched well. He just didn't get the results that he normally does, and they put some good at bats on him. They're a good team. So I think overall, when you have the lead in the ninth inning in 2 games out of the 3, and I think it's a 1-run game going into the 8th. In the other game, I think you're right on track. It's just they got a little unlucky, and they've done that to a bunch of teams this year. So I don't think you should be too worried about it.
What about, curious, you brought up saying about how frustrating it gets, and I knew this when I pitched, but the more hitters balance or fight it off, and even though you're trying to keep your composure, but that does piss you off. You're like, I think I make a good pitch.
Yeah.
And here you are just spoiling it.
Sometimes it doesn't even need to be a good pitch. Sometimes it's not the best pitch, and they're still fouling it off, and they're not hitting it in play. At some point, I'm like, just get a hit. I'd rather you get a hit and let me go to the next guy who hasn't seen 9 pitches, and as long as the situation calls for it. But sometimes I just wanted to hit it in play, and they keep fouling it off. You're throwing everything at them, and then eventually you throw one that's too good, and it ends up hurting you. But yeah, it's a frustrating thing. But I thought he actually threw a lot of good pitches. It's just he ends up throwing one over the plate, and he gets around on 100.
Yeah, I brought up this. I don't know if you heard the one point of it, but Kyle Tucker actually has done this before to Felix. He did it last year. So I watched it, and he almost did a similar at bat where he just was grinding, then hit a double that tied the game in the ninth. And then the Astros ended up causing a blown save and winning it last year. But Tucker's just a beast. He's a monster. One of the things, and we'll get more into fun stuff, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was with Shintaro Fujinami. Also, I like saying that name, Fuji. We had a thought get brought up, and I think it's really interesting. His inconsistencies have been documented. In your mind, obviously, being a starting pitcher, you can get him more rhythm. Are you seeing so far with him that's been a tough transition? Because remember, he started the season as a starter, and it seems to me he's not as comfortable when he has to go out of the stretch or come in more of those situations where he has to speed himself up.
Yeah, it's definitely a different mindset. It's one of those things as a starter, when you're pitching, your routine, everything you have to do to get ready for the game. And as a reliever, I think one of the biggest things I had was just making sure I was like fully loose. I just mentally didn't feel. I used to throw long bullpens, 35 to 40 pitches before the game, and you can't be doing that as a reliever. And I kind of had to learn on the fly, doing it myself, asking questions like, how many pitches should I throw? And they basically just told me to get my arm loose as quick as possible, and you get 7 pitches out there. So it's just one of those things you have to kind of get used to it over time. I think he's been relieving now for a decent part of the season. So I think he's probably asked those questions and tried to find the best spot for him. But I also know that, when they brought him in with no one on base, he's usually pretty good. Mm-hmm. He's been more consistent. When you get those guys on base and you're coming in and you haven't thrown a pitch yet, you're doing two things. You don't want to just throw a pitch right over the plate and have other people's runs. I sometimes felt worse giving up other people's runs than my runs. So that was a different mental hurdle that I had to battle, just because I was trying to be too fine. You end up, going 2-0, 3-0 on a lot of guys just because you're trying to throw too good of a pitch. So I think there's those things. And then I think, as a starter, it's just you have the 8th, 9th innings don't come for you too often, where the game's on the line and you give up 1 run at the end of the day. It's like if it's a 2nd or 3rd inning, you give up 2 runs, who cares? Trying to keep it to a minimum, but you got 6 more innings to hopefully go, or 7 more innings to go, and have your team kind of pick you up. So that all those mental hurdles that you're kind of trying to battle, it's a different animal in those 8th and 9th innings.
Yeah, so it's for me, it's been all of a mental thing for him. And honestly, we're probably not having this conversation at all if he had 3 chances to put away guys after the first 2 outs of the inning, and it turned into 3 walks. So, yep. And that's a part of baseball, as we know. But it's interesting because I don't think people look at it that way. And I also looked at the other spot of it. People are saying it's 29-30. I don't care how old you are. The adjustments, this is first year in the U.S. Switching teams, switching roles.
Balls are different.
The what? Go ahead.
The balls are different as well.
Oh, there you go. And that gives good context.
It's one of those things. I think a lot of the other leagues kind of have a small little tack to the ball. It's a little tackier. And then you come to the MLB, even the minor league balls are a little bit easier to throw. You get to the big leagues, that leather sometimes is tough. It's wound really tight. The seams are really low. And you're not talking about the ball completely slipping out of your hand, but just in terms of when you see a miss, it's not by a ridiculous amount. It's just by, just a little bit here, a little bit there. But also when you throw 101, 103, they don't want to swing. So you got to have to show them that you can throw some strikes first.
Yeah. And that's, I still love everything he's done. I have full belief in him. I just know it's a lot of people, especially being on social media now, we can see people are very quick to flip the switch on him, and quite frankly, also you can't account for certain injuries. So with the newest news that Coulombe's out and he's on the IL, if you were going to put a little bit of your thinking hat on, Steve, I know you don't love to think all the time, but here you are. what's something that if there's guys coming back right now that you'd have, if there's DL Hall, John Means, and I was just blanking on, you know what, this happens, part of it. But if we're gonna have a guy coming back here, who's one guy that you're kind of eyeing that you think would really fit in and help this team, because especially is more banged up than they were hoping it to be?
Yeah, it's tough because you want that other lefty in the pen if you can have it, and he was doing really well. And tough position to kind of bring up DL Hall with as well. You kind of bring him up in these situations, especially the situations that Coulomb was getting put in. You know, that's one of the things you want him to get the experience as well. And then you have a guy like Means who, depending on obviously how his rehab assignments go, what's he going to be like by the time he gets up here? Is it going to be like he's ready to go, or is there going to be some rust that he's going to have to battle? So, especially down the stretch in September, it's not really a great time for rust, but you also have his potential that he could bring if he's on. So, what different situation, what position is he going to come in? Is he going to get starts? Is he going to come in and be a long guy? I find it hard to believe that he's going to come in and get some starts just due to the fact that, his arm's not ready for that. It's been a long time. So if he can come in and give you some 1-2 inning stints, what kind of guy is he going to be in that situation for right now? So really tough call. I'm not going to go and make a decision here. Just going to play it nice and bland. But, you have two good guys who have the potential to really help you out, but it's just what kind of guy are they going to be?
All right, Steve, you're fired. Still love you though.
Do you want to talk about the kick?
Oh yeah, please bring it up. So this was and specifically, Steve, we were talking about balance. This is what I meant earlier with Fuge. Can you see this?
Yep.
So he's a guy clearly when there's no one on base and he can take more time, he seems more in rhythm. Do you think something like this, because of his delivery, and he can't do that obviously as much out of the stretch, is that something that you think as a pitcher, or even for my times, that could hinder his kind of timing and his consistency to throw strikes?
Definitely. I mean, obviously that's a leg kick that I can't say that I know a lot about, but
I don't remember you doing that.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't for me. But in terms of just rhythm, trying to get that guy that you get used to, bringing your leg up higher, out of the wind up, you can kind of take your time a little bit more, get a nice high leg kick and then go out. But obviously out of the stretch, you got to find something that works. And I would imagine that it's just really, really tough sometimes for certain guys to, be, I guess, as fine with whatever leg kick that they choose to do, from whether it's a slide step, whether it's just a, kind of like a quick step, in terms of just some guys can get loaded really well. I know that I took a long time to get a slide step that felt comfortable. So I just picked my leg up faster, which was still a different rhythm, but I just felt I was still getting my leg up really high, and that felt comfortable to me. But then when I got the pro ball, it was too slow. So I needed to find a leg kick that was comfortable, where I still got a decent amount of power. And I found something that worked, but it did take a while to kind of get that. I'm sure, he's fine. I mean, he might like to do that. So some guys are just more comfortable with no one on base, and they can take their time more. And maybe it's one of those things where he takes a little bit slower out of the, when he comes in, and even with guys on base. I mean, there's plenty of guys out there a little bit slower. The catchers don't like it. Not great for the run game, but in certain situations, you got to just say, hey, I'm more comfortable to pick my leg up more, and this batter is more important than a guy getting on second base sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate it. It's interesting. I mean, we talked about this. We love the ins and outs, and we could go on and on and on about what works. Again, it's like trying to find what works for you, but just hearing your evolution and process is something that not everyone's going to be thinking about on a day-to-day basis. Here's another thing, Steve, because I know you were, a specimen, obviously athletically, still are. So you had to get tired. I know you did. And we're talking about, at this point, this day and age, we're in August, the dog days. Fatigue. I think that's been a word that people have thrown around left and right. from a pitcher's perspective, when you've had your moments when you've hit a wall, how would you describe that? Because I think that's sometimes hard to articulate when you haven't necessarily gone through it.
I think there's two different kinds of, I guess, fatigue. There's like a dead arm period where you can just say your arm's not fully there. You feel like you're throwing, a decent speed, but it's not feeling like it's coming out pure. It's just one of those things. Your VLAN might be down, and you just might have that zip on it, and that sometimes happens. I felt like that happened more in like June, and then I'd get a second wind kind of going into the last half of the season where I got out of that. And then there's the tired of where your legs kind of start to fail you, kind of like mid game, or if you pitched a lot. As a starter, it's a little easier, but sometimes your whole thing is by that 5th day, sometimes you're just not fully back near the end of the year. It just doesn't recover as fast. So it's just trying to constantly battle those types of things. And mid game, you can kind of see, your legs start to fail you. I felt like it didn't happen too often where I felt that way, but you get longer into the game. Maybe you've had a couple short outings, whatever it ends up being, and you're getting into the 6th inning for the first time and who knows how long for whatever reason. And it's just like, wow, I haven't been here in a while. And I feel like I haven't been here in a while. And you can just feel it in your legs. So when your whole delivery is based off your lower half getting down the mound, and it doesn't necessarily do it on time, it can mess up the, timing of everything else. And I think that you kind of feel that when guys start missing, obviously really bad, whether it's arm side up and away, or they start to kind of try and make up for that, and they kind of spike it low. And then you kind of get that back and forth of they're trying to find it, but they're just trying to battle through some fatigue.
Isn't it the best and the worst at the same time? You feel great when you get through it, but it sucks when you can't get it together.
It's so many times I feel like, we even talking about like Fuji, I feel like he's a guy who's effectively wild, and he does it at 100. I felt like I did it at about 90, where everyone thought I threw slower. So, I obviously had super good control, but it's just like, no, I had a sneaky fastball that I was able to get away with stuff, and I threw it around the zone. And I felt like at times when I was out there where you just took off me, I'd probably throw a bunch of balls in a row. And it's just sometimes how it kind of feels out there, especially when your body's kind of feeling like it's failing you, and you're out there just trying to find out how to get it done, whatever way possible, dropping arm angles, doing whatever you need to do.
Well, there you have it, people, for some of these pitching. The last thing, and then we'll move on here, is that we touched on, it was in the unwritten episode. Sorry, this wasn't on here, Brad, but
you're good.
It was in the untold story of Steve and I's trip to the Iron Rooster for a baseball thing. We talked about Grayson before, and this was when he was having a little bit of his command, and we talked about how much pressure that was being put on him from not only probably himself, but from the outside. And we talked about, what the hell we were doing at, 22, 23. One, elaborate what you were doing at 22, 23, and two, kind of what you've seen since he came back up. Because honestly, he has looked really, really, for me, even on now his bad days, they're still very efficient days.
Yeah, obviously he's been great since he's got back up, in terms of just limiting the walks and all those things. And I think we were talking about just how kind of stressful it is at times where there's a lot of pressure put on as a first rounder, a younger guy. You got a lot of people with a lot of expectations for you, and you're just trying to meet them and exceed them. And when it doesn't happen right away, it just starts to build. You want to have a couple good outings, and I just feel like, even now he's having good outings, and he's getting to that last little, that last inning, and just not able to really fully get through it on a consistent basis to solidify his good outings, or it just kind of gets away from him at the end. And it's just like a frustrating thing, I think, for him, just to not be able to string together, even though we all can see it's way better and it's pretty good. It's just he's not getting the stats. He's not getting the full results of being able to get through that 6-7 innings on a consistent basis and have that clean sheet. Just always something ends up kind of getting there. And that's just a frustrating thing that you end up having to battle as well. But I mean, for me, I was never really a high prospect or anything. 22, 23, I was in AA, AAA. kind of just continuing to work my way up. I guess I was in my 6th or 7th minor league season at that point. So it was just it was a different time. I ended up getting Rule 5 though early on. I think I was probably 21, 22, somewhere around there when Orioles traded for me. Get Rule 5. You have this ability, to go right from AA to, I was Rule 5 to the Giants. And you have the chance to make a big league roster for the first time. And that's a lot of pressure in one spring training to go from AA and saying, okay, well, they think I have an opportunity to help them this year. And I just know the amount of pressure that I had. And I felt like I did okay, didn't do great. 2 people just completely outpitched me, 2 veteran guys, and I got sent back. But I remember feeling like now I had something to prove as well in terms of, they thought I was close to being in the big leagues. Now I want to show the Orioles that I was close to being in the big leagues. And that season just did not go well. That was a tough thing to have to battle because it felt like, for me, it felt like the Orioles were right in a way. And I didn't want that to happen. So I just, worked my butt off and kind of got things back on track for the next couple of years.
Hey, man, you made it to the show. So
yeah.
Damn right you
did. Something to be proud of for sure. Yeah, regardless.
Even though Brad would introduce you properly, I wouldn't. No offense. You're just Steve to me.
That's completely fine.
Still the specimen. Still playing in you're still playing in the leagues though, right? We just talked about that earlier.
Started playing in the over 30 league just to kind of get myself active again, I guess.
Still got it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a nice little grooving speed. I'd like to not pitch as much, but I know that I can get the ball over the plate sometimes a little bit better than some guys out there. But yeah, I definitely not trying to max out or anything. I enjoy playing shortstop and hitting again. I miss that.
Did any of those guys give you shit when they get a knock off you?
Yeah, some guys get pretty loud. I don't blame them though. Sometimes I'll just try and turn it on against them for the next at bat or something like that. It just doesn't come out as fast as it used to.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? It's you're a good kid, Steve. I'm proud of you. You're doing great. It's fun. Well, hey, that was kind of covering with Orioles stuff. We're gonna kind of bounce around here for a little bit because you obviously have a lot more passion not just for the Orioles, but I mean we all do with the Ravens, and we have some of our loves to see it, hates to see it, and if you want to stick around, if you want to get the hell out of here, man, you can do whatever you want.
No, I'm good.
Oh my goodness, great! Yeah, when we had it set up.
I mean, unless you want me out,
no, stay, Steve. You're here. We talked about this. Don't you leave on me now.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to touch then on the Ravens, right? It's football season. It's crazy. It's actually amazing that we have the Orioles and the Vens, kicking off where it's exciting, and we're not waiting for baseball season to end. And for football season to get here, it's kind of like, man, we got 2 things working for us. The Dobbins situation, we want to get in on that a little bit because it's considered to be a talking point. And Brad, I think you got a couple things.
Yeah. So Sarah Ellison put out something a few days ago where Todd Monken was interviewed and was asked about J.K. Dobbins. And this seems to be the thing, the answer that Monken gives, as well as Harbaugh, that they talk to him every day. And so the communication between coach and player seems to be pretty good. But they've been very vague on when exactly he's going to come back and where he is as far as his headspace is concerned. It's just that they have really good conversations, and that's kind of where they leave it. So here's what Sarah Ellison had put up. She said it's pretty clear that Ravens OC Tom Monken would like to see J.K. Dobbins on the field, admits to initially being a bit too much of a smart aleck in his response, but ends with saying that he's just excited when J.K. decides to practice. So here's what he actually says.
To have J.K. out there, I mean, there's no question about it. And we look forward when he does get out there. I don't control that. What I control is what we do each day on the practice field, and we'll be excited when he gets back.
John said he talked to him. Have you talked to him at all?
I talk to him every day. I talk to him every day. I don't know. Has a big smile on his face, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, he's there every day. So when he's out there, we'll be fired up. He's out there.
Realistically, with JK, how far behind is he as far as learning this offense goes? How much catching up does he have to do when he actually gets out?
Great question, because he hasn't repped. So it's hard for me to know that when he's not out there. It's just the way it is. I mean, he's not out there, so we'll find out when he does get out there. But we're excited. I know I was kind of being a little, smart aleck there, but I'm just saying in general, when he gets out there, we'll be excited to have him. Well, we'd love.
So there's a couple of things that like I feel like personally that were mentioned that's worth talking about. One of them is, as I'd mentioned before, communication's still there. But what Tom Munkin was saying about the reps, I think is very important. That, he wasn't flat out saying that they need JK out there, but he also, said that we need JK out there with it. You know what I mean? Like it is one of those things where he doesn't want to throw JK under the bus, but at the same time, he doesn't want to take away from the fact that it's super important for him to be out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, see, we talked about it. JK, team looks a little bit different when he's back there. One, we've had a lot of good things. Do you think this is something that we're not going to talk about this right now. But we can see how when there's certain issues that float over a team, we saw it last offseason with the Ravens. Is this something that's ringing true the same way, or you feel a little bit differently on this one?
This one's just an odd one to me because I kind of can go two ways with, obviously when your lead back's not out there and it's not necessarily a full injury issue and there's all this talk, it just brings negativity into the locker room, or at least just into the Twitter sphere, I guess. That's all everyone talks about. And I think that's the last thing everyone wants to talk about, with the last couple of years and how it went. But if you're lead back, you want him out there, and he's unfortunately hasn't really been out there on a consistent basis the last couple of years, which is I think why a little bit we're in the situation, or they're in the situation that they're in. I can go two ways with how to handle it, because it's like if you're going to sign a guy of his caliber to an extension, that's what he's looking for. Probably, in my eyes, the best time to do it because he hasn't really been there for you in terms of consistency due to injuries and different things. And I mean, you should get him at somewhat of a discount, but if he's looking for a better deal, I think this would be the worst time for him to look for one. Kind of, unless he's just worried that he's not going to get through another season, which is not really the best thing to kind of ask for when you're looking for an extension. So
that's kind of where I'm at, Steve. Like I think that like you have Saquon that signed the deal that he did. What was it? 1 year, $10 million or something like that. Right?
With 10.9, I think, but you have the incentives to boost it up to a certain level. So almost $11 million with incentives.
But still, that's not a lot for probably arguably the best top 2 running back in the league, right? Would you make that
athletically?
Yeah.
I mean,
so if he's going to agree to a deal like that, which I would say is not like a giant deal, like what is going through JK's head in that, like thinking that he's going to get something better? I'm not saying that JK isn't a dog, because he is a stud
beast,
but I would say that he's probably not at the same level as like a Saquon is athletically, and that he's probably not going to net the same type of contract, I would assume, as a Saquon would.
Well, this is the whole topic, because we'll just tie in the other situation here is with Jonathan Taylor. You know what I mean? Because that's continuing to go on.
Those are the top 2 running backs in the league, in my opinion.
As far as I will say, I think Nick Chubb, pure runner wise. I mean, Derrick Henry is just older now, but he got paid and he still performed. He's probably one of the few running backs. If we take the contracts, said, hey, we're going to pay you. And he got hurt, but then he still runs over people left and right. Yeah. He looks like Steve in his prime. So, but the other thing, Steve, because I kind of want to tie this in, and especially for us both being involved in professional sports, contract-wise, and I know baseball is different, but the same concept applies. You play, and you have to continue to prove yourself to get this next contract, and a lot of teams aren't going to be willing to maybe extend you earlier. In baseball, it's getting through arbitration, right? Makes sense. Football is getting through your rookie deal. And if you're a running back then, and now how it is, it's evaluating, do we just draft a replacement? Because I'm not saying this is not me being one way or the other, by the way, for anyone out there. Like, I'm all for people getting paid. I want people to get paid left and right. Like it's the same thing with my teammates in baseball, but the same thing applies. Teams have to make a decision on paying all this money for certain players. And then that's what you got to live with. So like, Steve, do you think that system is something that needs to change? Because I know that was a talking point for years, like getting rid of in baseball, getting rid of a year of arbitration. Do you think for rookies, for the rookie contract, do you think that they have that right at 4 or 5 years, depending on your first round pick? Or do you think that that's just the nature of the beast?
I think this is where it just gets really tricky, because I think running backs are obviously, it's been talked about. They're just in a really tough spot. They get overused. Their position is brutal, and for injury purposes, if they're lucky to kind of have a good couple seasons and get through it, obviously they're looking at an extension. And if unfortunately for the first rounders, that they can kind of go for five years before they become that free agent. But then you have the franchise stuff that just really, other than the qualifying offer stuff for baseball, you really don't have that issue where they can just kind of extend you twice, you get paid, and you're still playing year to year, and they don't get that security. So I think maybe one of the things, and obviously players have been, I think, fighting for this, to get rid of the franchise tag, or at least maybe get rid of it for certain positions. Maybe that's the fix. Whereas you can't kind of screw over a position that you overuse. Whereas, a lot of the other positions are maybe, in terms of quarterback, like they're always getting paid, no matter what, for the most part. They're getting through it. They're 27, 28, 29. They're getting paid. So maybe certain positions, maybe out of the draft, they're only going to go maybe 3 years for running backs. Maybe you do it based on position. I don't know really how that would work, but and that would probably screw up how people draft. But I think something needs to be done, because unfortunately they are getting the crap end of the stick. So I don't really know what the real answer is, other than maybe shortening it. But the owners aren't going to go for that, because they're winning right now in terms of that deal. So I just don't know how you get through that.
And that's why I just brought up we're talking about the ownership. And like, I get both sides, by the way. Like Brad and I talked about this. Yep. We don't fault anybody on either side. If I'm a business owner and you're trying to figure out, is this worth my investment after, like, I was trying to think of, and that's why I brought up with the arbitration with players. Like, Steve, how many times we see guys hitting free agency in baseball and they're 29, 30 years old, right? Yeah. Like Cedric Mullins isn't a free agent yet,
right.
So what's that going to look like? And then who's going to be willing to pay X amount of money? So like you saw Machado got the big deal. You saw Aaron Judge got the big deal, and they all
Shohei Ohtani's going to get the biggest deal of all time.
And I mean, he's incredible.
Two players.
Right.
Yep. Literally unbelievable. I mean, he's just.
But then you go into how long is he going to be, a good two players,
right.
And
right.
It's
and
like,
that's
what
when
are you paying for?
Right. And that's when you have to put on your GM hat, right? Like, and okay, what's the risk in paying a guy like this? And then it doesn't pan out for me. Like, and then I look like the asshole that like just dumped all this money on a player and bet the farm, probably quite literally, on a guy who didn't pan out. And now I'm like the worst GM ever and set my team back God knows how long.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it's looked at, but that's what's just fascinating to me, because that's where the contracts are set right now, is that players to make bank on it. And I actually had Steve, I don't know if you've ever met my friend Darius Jennings, played in the league for 7 years. And he just said, he goes, I never blamed anybody. And I have the clip up there. I'll show it at some point. I never blame anyone for holding out, because if the time comes where you're not of use anymore and they don't have to contractually pay you, they're not going to, which I don't blame anyone for that. Right. That's it. Whammy. That's done.
I think we talked about in baseball where it gets a little bit tough is because the average age of guys getting to the big leagues, I think, is like right around 24. And then 6 years go by where you're under team control, and that's if you're up for 6 years. I mean, how many times do guys go up and down for the first 3 years and barely get, a year of service time? Obviously the stars, we're not talking about them. They're gonna come up at 21, be free agents by 27, and they're gonna get paid. And they're probably gonna get an extension at some point. But in terms of just the average, the average big leaguer, the average guy that becomes a free agency or is trying to get there, he's going to become a free agent at 30, mostly 30, 31. And then what are you paying for as a team? You're paying for what they've done. To do it for 6 or 7 years in the big leagues is not easy to do. And then then they're like, oh, you're 30-year-old, so we're going to give you like a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. And you're like, well, I've been playing year to year for every year, and I finally get to free agency, and now I'm 30 and I'm too old. I know that's not everybody, but there's a lot of guys that are in that situation who aren't the superstars. They're the guy that should get or used to get the 2 to 3 year deal or 4-year deal, not the 7 to 10. But and that's just where it gets tough. It's like, what's right? Because it's worked for a while, but maybe they negotiate for 5 years, and that just makes them 1 year younger, and maybe one, it's a tough situation. I get both sides. It's just frustrating. I know for a lot of guys who get there, and you're like, man, I grinded every year to finally get to be, to get paid on, not that you're not making good money, just to finally get what you think you've kind of put in the work to get, and then you're 30, 31, and they don't want to give you a multi-year deal. It's just that's for obviously the average guy, but I obviously didn't make it really close to that, but it was nice to think about.
Always nice to think about.
Yeah, it was good. I just started doing the math on like when I would be a free agent after a couple of years, and it's like, okay,
when would that have
34.
been? If you would have been 34?
No, just after a couple of years of going up and down.
I
think even when I was with the Mariners, I had 2 injury kind of years with the Orioles after my debut year, and then I got up in 2016. I still had under a year of service time, or just over a year of service time, and I got up when I was 24. And I think I was 27 with the Mariners, and I had 5 years left, so I was like, I wasn't going to be a free agent until like the 33. So, that would have been. So I was like, okay, well,
awesome, let's go.
That's right. Speaking of contract extensions, our boy Rocco shared that Broderick Washington went through drills today after signing his 3-year extension with the team. You can see him here. He also, as I had mentioned, signed a huge contract. The new deal is worth up to $17.5 million with $10 million in guarantees. Thoughts on this,
Steve? You're our guest.
We're just putting Steve in the spotlight.
more depth for that defensive line. You lose Campbell, and that's a big loss, and you got to kind of fill that with, I guess, a bunch of guys. He's I don't know if you can do it with one. You hope to, but you get enough guys in there that can kind of rotate out, and hopefully he's one of those guys that can kind of stop that run game.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Calais Campbell, because I was quoted. I think I saw it. I don't remember who quoted it, but that he said that Broderick Washington was going to take his job very soon. And it's just funny how, he's no longer with the team. Here comes Broderick Washington sitting in here with brand new contract extension for the next 3 years. So guy is definitely a stud. I'm actually pretty pumped by this. Lots of attention, rightly so, on the offense, right? With Odell, and now Zay Flowers getting a bunch of hype. But man, this defense is going to be scary. A little bit of depth issues, I think, on the secondary side of things, obviously, but yeah, right. And so, but in the trenches, bro, stacked.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you have to do, right? I mean, so what is, for everyone, and this is not just, it's been the Ravens' way for as long as I can remember, but the first pick in the history of the organization was Jonathan Ogden, and that's been kind of the MO for the Ravens then, is winning in the trenches, being able to control the line of scrimmage, being able to have guys that can make impacts both on the inside and out. That's your goal. I love the move. It's another guy that's come through your pipeline, so to speak. And so when you're able to have that, it's even great to see things stay in house. I mean, I'm pumped about it. This defense, that's one thing too, Steve, is that the defense, I don't know if you heard a lot of the reports, the defense is the one that's been giving the offense a lot of trouble. We mentioned earlier, sometimes with the Orioles losing, like I said, Orioles losing the series to the Astros could be the best thing for them, because it's a good learning experience for the Ravens, I'm sure you feel a similar way. I'd much rather the offense get the shit beat out of them and hope that this Ravens defense is also this elite and work it out, because this is the time you can work out all of the issues that you have.
Yeah, I think it's also tough. They're going through a new offense. Don't have all their pieces out there. They don't have all their receivers out there. We got guys who are probably a little bit, I guess they're finally getting a lot of their receivers out there. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you're just trying to get guys to gel, get used to the offense. And then obviously you have a defense that's played together for a little bit, and they should take over. Exactly. And then as an offense, you're getting to go against really good squad out there every time you go practice. So I think going into the year, that should be pretty good battle here and there. Every practice you're going out there, it's just going to prepare them for those tough defenses that we have, they have to face.
And then it's true. I think that your point is that the offense has a lot of good pieces, but not everyone's there yet right now. And I think it's so hard. And that I think the storylines in general for the AFC North as a whole, Burrow, we don't know his status.
Yeah.
You have the Browns. Are they going to be the Browns, or is Deshaun Watson going to step up? And it feels like they're really like their quarterback play, or just their organizations just can continue to just.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Deshaun Watson is not going to be that dude this year.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of
bold
pressure.
prediction. Or maybe not that.
I don't know.
Is it even bold anymore? Because it's situations off the field age you a lot, but like that stress is in itself just a lot.
Yeah.
But to go on with it, the Steelers are actually been one of the most stable organizations, and Kenny Pickett, I think, can take a step. And then there's the Ravens. So like, actually, I was curious.
The Pickett-Pickens duo is going to be dangerous.
Yep.
Well, I hope not, but I
as a Ravens fan, of course not. But like, you got to see it for what it is.
They got some good pieces. They have Pickens.
I think Harris. I think Najee dealt with a whatever he was dealing with his ankle or his foot last year to start the season, and then as a running back, you're dealing with that to start the year. You never really maybe get in the full swing, but I think they added some pieces to the offensive line, and they always usually have a decent run game. And then you have a receiver like that you have to worry about. That's not an easy spot. I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking that. And the Steelers, they're just always tough. It doesn't matter. They're kind of like the Ravens. I mean, whether they're not supposed to be good or whatever it is, they still go out there and win a lot of games. So
I think it's very likely that there's 3 out of the 4 teams in the division that are in the playoffs this year.
It could be. I mean, I know the AFC East is going to make a claim for that as well, with the Jets, the Bills, the Dolphins. It's going to be a really interesting AFC. I will say this to close this part, and we'll move on. AFC North, the odds right now, division winners. The Bengals are still the favorite at plus 150. Ravens 210. Browns 400. Steelers 470.
No way.
No, but I'm saying at 210 for the Ravens, I'm getting to the point here. I might sprinkle something.
Yeah.
Or I might just hammer it, Steve.
Like who's got these odds up? What are you looking?
It's just across the board with FanDuel, MGM, Caesars. It's anywhere between 210 to 235. DraftKings actually has the highest at 235 for the Ravens. But for me right there, I mean,
I'm just surprised that the Steelers are at the bottom of that. I really am.
It's because of a rookie quarterback coming into his second year. That's why.
Yeah, I get it, but I don't know.
You don't know. Hey, Steve, I want to talk about, before we get into love to see it, hate to see it. Fantasy football season is right around the corner, and a couple things. One, the Iron Rooster that I do a lot of, I've done the podcast with, where I sadly and tragically lost the audio of Steve, and I guess we're just going to have to do it again, Steve. So tough luck for you.
Yep.
Clear your schedule. Don't eat for 2 days. But so the Iron Rooster, we are hosting a Ripken Rooster Rumble, and that is up now. So for those that want to sign up, we have 2 events. You can go to ripkenrumble.com. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're partnering with the Jonathan Ogden Foundation. So J.O. is going to be at the event. You sign up for the league. We have a lot of great prizes you can win. We're donating to the foundation. You got all food and drinks included with your registration. So please check it out online. And if you want to have a team with a friend, hop on in the league. We'll see you guys both at the parties. But we have a lot to give out here. So, which includes the grand prize of a VIP experience for the Ravens in 2024. So stay tuned. Just wanted to plug that. Any questions on my page or info@ripkenrumble.com. Now, Steve, back to you real quick. You have your fantasy league figured out as far as where you're drafting? Because the one thing that I loved was how you guys decided the draft order.
Yeah, I'm drafting 2 out of 12. So, but yeah, we usually put on. I'm happy with it at the moment. I like it. I've done about 300,000 mock drafts.
Damn right you have.
Just kind of bored and at night and just okay, I'll just go on and do one. Just kind of seeing where the same guys are falling. But yeah, we're all ready. Gonna grill up or smoke some meat for the draft day, and we have a nice live draft, and then I get to finally announce who I'm picking.
Hell yeah!
What are you smoking out there, Steve?
I'll probably do some pork belly. Do pork belly burnt ends.
Ooh, okay.
Probably my go-to at the moment. Just they're nice and easy. Don't go too crazy, but maybe a pork butt as well. We'll see.
All right, we'll save some for me. I'll see you then. I'll just come and watch.
Yeah, just come on by.
You just let me know. Fantasy football it's such a fun year. We're going to talk more and more about what's going to happen on the season as we plug this in, and Steve will have you come on and give maybe you can be our expert analysis for each pick and actually help me on pick 10. We'll talk off the air here.
Yeah.
But so now let's move into a little bit. Cool to move into some love to see it, hate to see it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So Steve, for if you don't know, now you know. We try to bring in some topics each week that we love to see or we hate to see. Pretty simple. So we'll go back and forth, and you can give us your input if you agree with us or not, or anything else. So Brad.
Yes, sir.
After you.
All right. So, there's just some certain things that you love to see, and baseball. There's just few things that warm your heart more than like fans coming to a baseball game for the first time. Imagine being 91 years old and going to a baseball game for the first time in your entire life. I mean, just imagine it. Well, that's what happened. I was like waiting for somebody to respond.
We just were so into the storytelling.
Yeah.
So we were just
hanging out. I can't imagine that at all.
Can you relate? No, I can't, Brad.
Yeah,
but
thanks, bro. Thanks. Appreciate the support, guys. Jesus Christ. That happened to a 91-year-old woman who was a Reds fan, and she came to see Joey Votto, and the guy hits a dinger.
Oh,
her
awesome.
first baseball
That's
game.
great.
She's 91 years old. Hopefully it won't be her last.
Well, and clearly she's a Votto fan, and it's been fun seeing the Reds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Steve, you can't relate, but it's a good story, right?
Yes, it is. It's a good story. I don't think either of us could really relate.
I don't think either of us. But awesome. You love to see it. The Reds are playing well. It's a lot of fun. You hope to continue to see that with the Reds. It's just good for baseball to see other teams, and it's great to see moments like this because at the end of the day, isn't life worth more than just when we get caught up in our own day-to-day, interactions and whatnot.
That's why the game's great.
Yeah. Sports. All right, my love to see it right now. I don't know how much you've been following this, Steve, but I've loved to see Lionel Messi play in the United States, and I was never concerned, but I was curious how it would go, and it's been electrifying from the start. Just absolute madness, and I think that's really cool because I think over time, that's just the one sport in the U.S. that we just don't get a lot of buzz about because they don't have a lot of the top talent. So to finally see it come together has been, for Messi, for me, I feel like every highlight I'm glued to. and every alert, I want to try to get to the nearest TV. So I think it's just really cool to see. I love to see it. Are you a big soccer fan, Steve?
I am. Yeah, I enjoy it. I got into it more in AAA. You watched in the World Cup, and I just felt like when I have a team to root for, it's fun. When I'm just watching two teams I don't care about, it's not as fun for me. But yeah, I latched on to Everton in the Premier League, and that's been a whirlwind of of emotions the last couple of years in terms of that. But yeah, my wife played soccer at Maryland, and so I've gotten to see a decent amount of it, and being able to kind of just watch Messi come here, and I feel like there's very few athletes out there that when something's on the line, it's a big moment that you just know that something good's going to happen, and he's just one of those guys. At least right now, I feel like his whole career is just a big situation at the end of the game. He has the free kick, all right, and he's probably going to make it, and he does. And it's just, I think very few athletes are able to come through like that.
I'm with you. Like it really is true. I think that's why it's so gravitating. And also, talking about people beloved him everywhere, especially in Argentina after they won the World Cup. And he's still relevant, and I think that's the other part where I know they're probably saying he's getting to the end of his career, which he probably is. But the fact of the matter is he's still, to me, playing at a level that is extremely, extremely entertaining.
Yeah, check out the stat that Joe Pompliano put out. Let me zoom in here for you guys. Inter Miami owner Jorge Mas says that the MLS season pass subscribers on Apple TV have more than doubled since Lionel Messi joined the team last month. Messi also gets a cut of every new subscriber via a revenue sharing deal with Apple. And he's going to absolutely crush it.
Pretty good deal. Where can I sign up for that?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, hey, if that's not a performance-based type of, pay, I don't know what.
Talk about incentives.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah.
Whammy. Do you have any hate to see it?
I do not have any hate to see it.
Well, guess what I do? And we'll stick with soccer here for a moment. I hate to see that the U.S. women's team fell to Sweden in the round of 16. It's not because it's all part of it. They've been so dominant, but also on the other side of it, for them, it's a frustrating loss because they have said that they felt like they controlled the game. And if you look at the stat sheet, they outshot the Swedes 22-9, shots on target 11-1, possession 58 to 42%, and they still had a chance to win it in penalty kicks. It just was a moment where you hate to see it, just because the World Cup, you can't expect they're going for true greatness. Teams are going to lose. But they also went their longest drought without scoring, in a World Cup. I think it was even almost leaking into 2.5 games, if I can't remember the exact number. So hate to see that. Great for the Swedens, not so great if you're an American.
Yeah, the women's team said we want to express our gratitude to have the fans and supporters who have stood by our team. Your unwavering support means a lot to us, and we appreciate your dedication. I went on to say that our goal remains the same: to win. We're committed to surpassing the standard we'll help to create, and we will rise to meet the challenge. So there you have it. Sucks, but it's just part of it.
Losing sucks, Steve.
It does. It does. I just think that in terms of the sport that we chose to play, you do so much of it. So you get pretty used to it. But yeah, in terms of a lot of other sports, you're not as lucky to lose as much and still be successful, I guess.
Yeah. And this is one thing, and I'm not going to touch on this, but this is a lot of things are surrounding the team recently, and you're talking about winning and how hard it is. I'm going to look right at the camera for this, and Steve, because you just echoed my feelings. The Orioles, they celebrated the 83 team right on Saturday, at Camden Yards. And I said this on the radio the other day.
Still didn't get the invite.
You know what? I actually didn't get the invite either. I wasn't even, that's a whole other story, Steve. I don't know. I haven't even told anyone this publicly. I got invited to the game, but not by my dad. So
So, well, yeah, set the tone here because it was the 1983 World Series reunion.
Yes.
Your dad was there.
Yes.
You were there, but
Yes.
your dad did not invite you.
So, okay, beforehand, I was already committed to go to the game, but didn't know the 83 reunion was then. And then while I was about to go to the game, I said, well, I heard something. So I thought, hey, let me just simultaneously, then my dad calls me or I call him, whatever it is, and 2 to 3 hours prior. It's like, oh, hey, the reunion's tonight. And I go, well, oh, it is? Well, I'm already going, and he's like, oh, well, you know what? That's great. And I go, well, what a coincidence this was. But then we ended up, yeah, I know, right? And he even said, he goes, no, I got caught up with the date because my dad also thought it was a different day. Like, it happens. He thought it was the next day. And then you look at the calendar, you're like, oh, wow, today's the day. And we did a bunch of traveling. Rachel just got married. So benefit of the doubt. But yeah, so don't give me that shit over there. Okay. I mean, Steve, I look good.
Yeah, no.
No,
it's nice. It's good. The black's nice. It's slimming.
Slimming.
the hell does that mean? Are you kidding me?
What do you want me to say? I'm just,
I want you to talk me up. I want you to build me up, not break me down.
That's not. It's slimming. That's a good thing. I didn't say that you weren't slim without it.
By the way,
that's your stuff.
By the way, this is also the very same day that Jim Palmer finally followed you on Twitter or X, whatever.
He followed me a few days before that, and Jim said on Mass,
that's right. Sorry about that.
He was gonna come on. And also, just to do the picture there, John Shelby T-Bone on the right. He was my dad's longest teammate, friend. And so that was really great to reconnect with him, and obviously see Jim and Calvin. It's always, I joke.
Good to see Dad.
I joke around a lot. It's always good to spend time, if you have the chance to with family. So it was cool. Definitely not the way everyone expected it. But enough about my stuff. Then I wanted to touch on one more. Hate to see it, and as we're getting close on time. Well, first off. Yeah, hate to see it here. Finish would love to see it grind gears and get on out of here. Pac-12's crumbling. I mean, it is crumbled right now. I mean, absolutely nuts. And my sister works in the athletic department at CU for the Buffs. So they were like the first domino to fall going to the Big 12.
Yeah.
Back to the Big 12, by the way. And then it just one by one, more teams are going and going. And yes, I know recently before that USC, UCLA, they left too. But I'm just talking about recency bias. Steve, are you happy about seeing this kind of crumble in the disconfiguration of college athletics? Like, does this sadden you? Like it hurts me a little bit or no?
I mean, college sports aren't really. I watch them. They're not I'm not like a huge college football guy because I didn't go to college. So, I usually, I feel like that's kind of like go-to. I'm like a Maryland fan, but it's, obviously Maryland being the Big Ten's kind of gaining everybody. But it just comes down to TV deals. And I just feel like people are going to the highest bidder in a way and trying to get out before they're the last ones left. And I feel like all the teams left in that other conferences that they're kind of screwed. I don't know what they're going to do. And then I was just thinking of like, just in terms of all the conferences. I mean, now you have the Big Ten, they're super spread out.
Everywhere.
I don't know how, I mean, in terms of college football, that's great because they get a week off. There's a lot of other sports. So that's what I was thinking about. That was the first thing I thought about is just the other sports that play guys on a regular basis within a couple games, whether it's soccer or, baseball is, I guess, a little bit different, but still your travel days with classes. And I'm not sure how that works because pretty much every other sport plays more than once a week. So when you talk about those teams going from Maryland to, wherever they're going way out there and like Oregon, Oregon joined, right?
I think they're in talks too. I mean, USC, UCLA,
yeah. So
like it's just holy shirts and pants.
But I don't know how I guess you do it all in one trip, but you're missing classes and that's what I thought about. And I think that's the tougher part. But that I'm glad that that's not my job to try and figure out. But I'm not sure what they're going to do. That's a situation where I think you end up with maybe 3 or 4 huge conferences at the end of the day in a couple of years, and they'll have to do some sort of realignment, I'm sure.
Probably. It is sad. And not to be on a downer at that moment, but it does stink for college athletics. On a positive, though, do it one more last. Love to see it, and then we'll go to the grindy gears and get on out of here. Hard Knocks is back. Did you watch the first episode, Steve?
I did. I actually just finished it this morning.
What did you think?
I liked it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that I feel like he's just fun to watch. Just the excitement around him with all the guys, talking about being around him, and even just helping Zach Wilson. I feel like that was a cool little part where you just maybe feel like he's getting better, and not that sure he's going to get the opportunity there, but to maybe just help his career. That was kind of fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
I did too. Brad, you have no comments?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was too busy. I was too busy watching quarterback. I was finally catching up on that.
You know what? I actually have to watch that.
It's awesome. I'm such a fan of Kirk Cousins now. And
Captain Kirk.
And still not a fan of Brittany Mahomes, but I guess that'll be another conversation for another time.
Another day. Hey, last thing here, we're just gonna grind our gears out here. Steve, last thing with we do a segment. It's just something that really ticks you off. So if you have one, if you're thinking of one, let us know. This is the time we get it out of our system. So my grind my gear for the week is when I actually tell myself that I am going to go to bed early. I prep, I'm pumped. And then I get into bed and either I have to answer a certain email or then I have something else comes up. Ollie, my pup, is just being a menace. Or then finally I'm just sitting there and I can't go to sleep. And I'm sitting there and then I end up falling asleep later than I usually would. And why am I bringing that up? Because it just happened to me like 2 days ago. And it's been sitting with me. I've been waiting to get this out. I don't know what to do, but it did grind my gears, and here's my vent. So, all right, I'm good. See you guys.
You know what grinds my gears? Cold calls. If you haven't talked to me in 6 months and you just cold call my ass, nothing irritates me more. You know why? Because I'm like, who died? Are you okay? Like that's my first assumption. Like if I haven't heard from you in 6 months and you just cold call me, I'm thinking something's wrong, something's happening, and then you're just like, oh, I just wanted to say hey. Like text me first, let me know you're gonna give me a call. Make sure that I'm not doing something. But that's what grinds my gears.
I mean, rightfully so. I can hear that passion. It's almost as passionate about your Batista hear me out to start the day.
Yeah.
Steve, you got any grind? You want to grind some gears, or are you just calm, cool, and collective? You're just a cucumber, man.
I mean, I guess in along those lines, when someone calls and doesn't leave a message, if they're trying to get a hold of you, they just call and then they let you know they called you a little bit ago, and it's like, well, sometimes I'm not going to call you back if you don't leave a message. What was it? What was it for? So I guess along those lines. But
Steve, I personally, if you leave me a message that just says, "Hey, call me back," I'm still pissed.
Yeah,
like don't just leave. And that's
let me know what it's about.
My mailbox is full, and it's going to stay full because I don't need anybody like, oh, hey, call me back. No, I saw that you called. Thanks. But or send me a text. Sending me a text after you call is fine. That's cool. But don't just like leave me a voicemail and say, yeah, call me back. Like I didn't see that you called.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen with family members where it's call me, and it's and then also it's from certain family members where I'm like, when you go to the place, like what happened, and then it's like, well, hey, we have this trip planned in like 2 weeks. What are your thoughts? I'm like, that's what we're going to talk about. That's
right.
what you need to tell me. I had lessons for 4 hours or whatever, or me and Brad are doing this, and this is the news that couldn't wait, or even an explanation. I'm with you guys. Isn't this fun? Don't you feel better now? Can we all relate?
We got it out of our system.
I feel good.
Yeah.
You feel great. Steve, you look great. You know what? That kind of
Thanks,
does
you.
it for us. What? Are you outside
Same to
looking?
you. I said same to you. There you go.
You got your slimming shirt on.
Hey, I do. It's a different shirt, by the way, and it's also
Sure it
trying to do the. Steve, I swear, man. I am. Yeah, I'm gonna come. You know what? You're gonna come down here next time. We're gonna talk more as we get closer, also to the end of the season. Get you more involved. Gonna have actually a Steve episode at the Rooster, so people can actually see the untold stories of Steve, including some good road trips, some good room keys, whatever you find in the room, perhaps.
Crazy stuff.
Teaser, great stuff. But guys, we'll be back then next week.
Yep.
We're back the week after that, and we're gonna have a live show actually in Kenton, in Baltimore, right down here. We're going to be watching a game. Hopefully you guys can all enjoy. Stay tuned for those details. Will be a lot of fun. Brad, any last closing words?
Nah, Steve, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it. It was fun having you on. And guys, if you are watching for the first time and you hadn't hit that subscribe button, make sure you're doing that, as well as hitting that like button, getting the word out. Be a friend, tell a friend about the Ryan Ripken Show, and help us continue to grow this thing, because I think that it's going to be a really exciting fall, and you're not going to want to miss out on all the good stuff that we have coming up. So guys, thank you for watching. And Steve, we'll catch you next time. Everyone else, see you next Thursday.
See you guys.
Love you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.